Picture this. You're watching a documentary. A stranger on screen talks about losing someone they loved. You've never met this person. You'll never meet them. And yet, your eyes fill up. Or maybe it's a song, one that has nothing to do with your life technically, but something in the chord progression reaches into your chest and pulls. Or it's an argument, a small one, and before you can stop it, your voice breaks and you hate yourself a little for it because now the other person thinks they've won. If any of that is familiar, this video is about you. And more specifically, it's about why what you've probably been told is a flaw might actually be one of the more sophisticated things your brain does. Let's start with what's actually happening when you cry easily, because most people get this completely wrong. The common assumption is that frequent crying means poor emotional control, that if you could just manage your feelings better, the tears wouldn't come so fast. But neuroscience tells a different story. Research on emotional processing shows that people who cry easily tend to have what's called lower alexithymia, which is essentially the ability to accurately identify, name, and understand their own emotional states in real time. In plain terms, their brain doesn't lag behind their feelings. There's no gap between what they experience and what they register. The emotion arrives, the nervous system recognizes it immediately, and the body responds. That's not poor control, that's exceptional sensitivity, and it comes with a specific cognitive profile that researchers have consistently linked to stronger empathy, more accurate social perception, and deeper emotional intelligence. The people who can't cry easily, they're often the ones sitting on a backlog of unprocessed emotion they don't have the vocabulary to name. There's a concept worth understanding here called emotional granularity. Most people experience emotions in broad, blunt categories: happy, sad, angry, fine. But people with high emotional granularity experience something more like a full color spectrum. They don't just feel sad, they feel the specific weight of nostalgia, or the particular ache of something beautiful ending, or the strange grief of a moment you know you'll miss even while it's still happening. And the brain, when it encounters something that resonates at that level of specificity, a piece of music, a memory, a moment of unexpected kindness, doesn't always have a verbal response ready. So the body steps in. Tears are what happen when the emotional signal is too precise for language to carry alone. That's not overflow from weakness. That's the body being honest when words aren't enough. Now I want to address something directly, because if you cry easily, there's a good chance you've spent years managing the shame around it, excusing yourself, turning away, waiting until you're alone. You've probably been told, explicitly or implicitly, that it's too much, that you're too sensitive, that you need to toughen up, get thicker skin, not let everything affect you so deeply. And maybe you've even tried clenching your jaw in meetings, breathing through the tightness in your throat, telling yourself not now, not here. But here's what that effort is actually costing you. When you suppress tears, your body doesn't release the emotion, it stores it. Cortisol levels stay elevated, the nervous system stays activated. And what should have been a moment of genuine release becomes a layer of tension sitting just below the surface, waiting. This is why people who consistently suppress emotion often describe a strange numbness over time. Not peace, numbness. The emotional spectrum narrows. Joy becomes less vivid because you've turned down the same dial that makes sadness hurt. Crying easily, paradoxically, is often what keeps the full range of feeling available. Let me draw a distinction that I think matters a lot. There are two very different reasons someone might cry easily, and they look identical from the outside but feel completely different from the inside. The first is what we might call responsive crying, tears that come from genuine emotional resonance, beauty, connection, meaning, grief, the nervous system encountering something real and responding honestly. The second is dysregulated crying, tears that come from a system that's been overloaded for too long, accumulated stress, unprocessed trauma, chronic emotional suppression that finally finds a crack. This is the kind where you sob over something small and know somewhere beneath the confusion that it was never really about the small thing. Both are real, both deserve compassion, but they call for different responses. If your tears come from resonance, from feeling deeply, from staying genuinely connected to what's happening around you, you don't need to change anything. You need context. You need to understand why this is a feature, not a flaw. If your tears come from a system that's been carrying too much for too long, that's worth paying attention to. Not because the tears are wrong, but because they might be signaling something that needs more than just permission to cry. Here's what the research actually tells us about people who cry easily. They tend to form deeper attachments. When someone earns their trust and their emotional openness, the connection is genuine in a way that casual relationships rarely are. They process grief faster, not because they feel it less, but because they don't defer it. They move through loss rather than around it, which means they are not carrying grief from 5 years ago into their present. They are harder to deceive emotionally because their nervous system is calibrated to detect subtle shifts in tone, in energy, in the space between what someone says and what they mean. They often sense inauthenticity before they can articulate why. And they tend to create environments where other people feel safe to be honest. There's something about being around someone who doesn't perform composure that makes it easier for others to drop the performance too. These are not small things. I want to say something to the people who've spent years apologizing for their tears. The discomfort you cause other people when you cry is not evidence that something is wrong with you. It's often evidence that your emotional honesty is reflecting something back at them that they're not ready to look at. People who have learned to suppress their own feeling can find it genuinely uncomfortable to witness someone who hasn't. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something they've forgotten how to do. That's not your problem to manage. You don't owe anyone a drier version of yourself. And here's the thing that doesn't get said often enough. In a cultural moment where everyone is performing wellness, optimizing, productivity hacking, keeping it together, growing through it, people who cry easily are doing something quietly radical. They're refusing to be numb. They're staying connected to the full cost and full beauty of being alive. And in a world that rewards composure above almost everything, that refusal takes more courage than most people realize. So, no, nothing is wrong with you. Your tears are not weakness dressed up as emotion. They are emotion, honest and immediate, arriving before you've had the chance to decide how to perform it. And that is rarer and more valuable than the world has given you credit for.